I was never the type to believe in cursed media. You know, those internet legends about VHS tapes that drive people insane, or YouTube videos that mysteriously disappear after making their viewers vanish too. I always thought it was just modern-day campfire storytelling, a way to scare people through screens instead of flames. But then I found something I wish I never had, a Disney short that was never meant to be seen. And if you think I'm exaggerating, let me just say this. What I saw in that cartoon has followed me into every dream, every shadow, and every sound I hear when I'm alone. It all started late one night when I was digging through an old external hard drive. I'd gotten it years ago at a garage sale from a man who barely looked me in the eye when I handed over a crumpled $10 bill. He muttered something about it being filled with vintage animation files before shoving it into my hands. At the time, I thought I'd scored a treasure trove, rare cartoons, old Mickey shorts, maybe some forgotten Disney experiments. But I left it sitting in a drawer for years. That night, for reasons I can't fully explain, I plugged it in. The drive whirred, almost reluctantly, as if it hadn't been woken in a long time. Folder after folder popped up, Mickey 1930s, silly symphonies, lost reels. Most of them looked innocent enough, though the file names were messy, unorganized, sometimes in gibberish text like corrupted code. But one folder stood out. It was labeled simply, "Don't Watch." Now, I know how that sounds. Like some cheap setup for a horror story. But I swear to you, it was really there, in bold capital letters, as if daring me. My heart actually skipped when I clicked it. Inside, there was only one file, smile.avi. For a few moments, I hovered my cursor over it. I almost convinced myself it was just some troll's idea of a joke, maybe a corrupted file that played static or some meme. But then I thought, what if it was an unreleased Disney test reel? Something no one else had seen? That curiosity clawed at me harder than any sense of caution could. When I finally double-clicked, the screen stayed black for several seconds. Too long. My reflection stared back at me from the glossy monitor, pale and expectant. Then, slowly, the familiar Disney Castle intro appeared, but it was wrong. The colors were muted, like they'd been drained of life. The fireworks didn't sparkle, they fizzled like dying embers. The iconic theme music dragged, warped, and slowed, each note twisting downward until it felt less like a triumphant melody and more like a funeral dirge. And then, instead of fading into a cheerful cartoon, the castle crumbled, stone by stone, collapsing into darkness. That was the moment I should have stopped, closed the laptop, pulled the drive out, and never looked back. But I didn't. I leaned closer to the screen, pulse racing, as though I was being pulled forward by invisible strings. The video cut to black for a few seconds. I swear I heard something faint in the silence. A whisper. My own name. I shook it off as my imagination. And then, without warning, a title card appeared in white letters against a void black background. Smile. That's all it said. Just one word. But something about the font, the jagged edges, the uneven spacing, looked wrong. Like it wasn't meant to be read by human eyes. And before I could even think about clicking pause, the short began to play. I should have never clicked it.
The cartoon opened with what looked like a typical 1930s Disney short. The grainy black and white filter, the scratchy film reel sound, the flicker of dust and burn marks on the corners. It all felt authentic. For a split second, I almost relaxed. Maybe this was just some old Mickey clip Disney buried because it was too weird or experimental. But then I noticed something. The background wasn't whimsical or hand-painted like the others I'd seen. It was just a single, endless street. The buildings were gray, windowless, stretching block after block like a looping map painting. The sky was flat and empty, a dull gradient with no sun, no clouds, no movement. And then Mickey appeared. At first glance, it was the Mickey everyone knows. Round ears, big shoes, those white gloves. But his movements were off. He didn't bounce or whistle or smile. He just trudged forward, one foot in front of the other, head bowed, shoulders slumped. His arms hung stiffly at his sides, swinging just slightly, as though he was being dragged forward. There was no music. No cheerful harmonica or Johnny orchestra. Just the faint scratch of the film reel. And beneath that, God, I swear I heard it, a low hum. Like a drone, constant and vibrating, so deep I felt it in my chest more than I heard it with my ears. Mickey walked, and walked, and walked. The same street, repeating endlessly. At first, I thought maybe it was some kind of early animation test, a loop. But then small details began to change. The buildings seemed to bend inward, slanting at impossible angles. Windows appeared, then vanished. And with each repetition, the background grew darker, more distorted, like the reel itself was melting. I leaned closer, eyes burning into the screen. My cursor hovered near the pause button, but my hand refused to move. Something about the cartoon demanded my attention, like a hook in my mind. Then Mickey looked up. It was only for a second, but I saw his face clearly. His eyes weren't the cheerful black ovals we're used to. They were empty, hollow pits. And his mouth, God, his mouth stretched into a long, unnatural grin, teeth jagged and too many. It didn't look drawn. It looked real, like someone had pasted a human smile onto a cartoon body. I actually flinched back from the screen. My chest tightened, but I couldn't look away. I kept telling myself it was just a weird fan edit, some sick joke. But it didn't feel like a joke. It felt wrong in a way I can't explain. Then the humming grew louder. It wasn't just sound. It was pressure, building in my skull, vibrating through my bones. I pressed my palms to my ears, but it made no difference. The hum was inside me, rattling my teeth, clawing into my brain. Mickey stumbled now, his movements jerky, uneven. The background warped with each step. I swear the buildings were leaning in closer, the windows pulsing like eyes. And then, there it was again. A whisper. This time, it wasn't faint. It was clear. A voice, distorted but unmistakable, hissed. Keep watching. I froze. My mouth went dry. The rational part of my brain screamed to stop the video, to rip the drive out of the laptop, to throw the damn thing out the window. But my finger didn't move. Instead, I sat there, staring as Mickey's face began to distort. His grin stretched wider, cracking into his cheeks. His hollow eyes bled black streams that dripped down his face and vanished into the void background. His feet shuffled faster, pounding against the ground like he was running in place. The hum escalated into a roar, and behind it, I swear I heard screams. Faint, distant, dozens of them. And then, for the briefest moment, the screen cut to black. I thought the file had crashed. Relief washed over me, until words appeared, in the same jagged font as before. Smile with him. When the video returned, Mickey was no longer on the street. He was staring directly at me, filling the screen. His face pressed up against the glass, eyes hollow voids, teeth gnashing in a grotesque grin. And then, in the silence between the static hums, I heard something that froze my blood. The voice whispered again. This time, it didn't say keep watching. It said my name. My breath came in shallow bursts as Mickey's face filled the screen. I couldn't move, couldn't even blink. His hollow eyes seemed endless, black wells that sucked every ounce of light from the room. His teeth clicked together in a slow, deliberate rhythm, like bones knocking. I reached for the laptop lid to slam it shut, but before I touched it, the video shifted. The screen flickered, warped, and suddenly I wasn't staring at Mickey anymore. I was staring at a room. It was dimly lit, grainy like old VHS footage, but it wasn't animated. It was real. For walls, peeling wallpaper, a single chair in the center. Something about the angle made it feel like the room was underground, damp and suffocating. For a moment, it was empty. Then, from the corner of the frame, Mickey walked in. But this wasn't the cartoon Mickey anymore. This was something else, something that shouldn't exist. His outline shimmered, like a drawing forced into reality. His proportions shifted with each step, his gloves dripping black ink that stained the floor. His shoes squeaked with a wet, organic sound, not the playful tap of animation. He stood by the chair. And then, God, I realized someone was sitting in it. A figure, bound, their head lolled forward, hair covering their face. Their body twitched every few seconds, as though some invisible current jolted through them. My throat closed up as dread pooled in my stomach. The camera zoomed. Slowly, painfully, the bound figure lifted their head, and for the first time, I saw their face. It was blurry, distorted by the grain of the tape, but I swear, I recognized them. The slope of the nose, the shape of the eyes. My blood turned to ice when it clicked. It was my best friend. The same friend who had sent me the link. The same one who had gone silent after. Their eyes were wide, terrified, glistening with tears. Their mouth moved soundlessly, as if they were trying to scream but couldn't.
I slammed my hand against the keyboard, trying to pause the video, to stop it, but nothing worked. The controls were frozen. The file had taken over. On screen, Mickey leaned down toward the figure. His jagged grin widened as he pressed a gloved finger against their lips, silencing them. Black liquid oozed from his glove, dripping down their chin. The hum returned, louder than ever, rattling my desk, vibrating in my ribs. And then, layered within it, came more whispers. Dozens of voices this time. Male, female, child. All repeating the same phrase in unison. Smile with him. Smile with him. Smile with him. My friend's eyes rolled back, and their mouths stretched into a grotesque grin, forced wider and wider until it looked like their skin would split. They convulsed, body jerking violently against the ropes. And then the camera cut. The screen was black again. I staggered back, chest heaving, trying to convince myself it wasn't real. Just some sick edit, some elaborate prank. But before I could catch my breath, the black screen flashed white text. You're next. My hands trembled as I gripped the laptop. My pulse thundered in my ears, every instinct screaming to shut it down. But I didn't. I couldn't. Some force, stronger than fear, kept me glued to the screen. The video resumed. The setting had changed again. This time, it was a hallway, long, narrow, stretching into infinity. The walls were lined with doors, each one slightly ajar. From behind them, faint noises seeped out. Whimpers, scratches, laughter, and then the camera began moving. Slowly, down the hall. The sound design was unbearable. Every creak of the floorboards, every muffled cry from behind those doors, pressed against my skull. I felt like if I listened too closely, I'd recognize the voices. Halfway down the hall, one door slammed shut with a deafening crack. I jolted, heart pounding, sweat running down my back. The camera paused at the door. Scratched into the wood, in jagged, uneven letters, was my full name. My stomach dropped. I backed away from the laptop, ball rising in my throat. There was no way this was coincidence. No way this was just a video file. But before I could act, the screen shifted again, so fast it gave me whiplash. Mickey was back. His face consumed the screen, grinning wider than before, teeth glistening with something thick and wet. His empty eyes locked onto mine, and for the first time, his mouth moved. The words didn't sync with his lips, but I heard them clear as day. I found you. The laptop speakers crackled violently, the hum splitting into shrill static. The screen glitched, flickering between Mickey's face and something else, frames too fast to fully catch. But I saw enough. Faces. Distorted. Grinning. Screaming. Some I didn't recognize. Others I did. And in the blur of flickering images, I thought I saw my own reflection among them. I stumbled backward from the desk, nearly tripping over the chair. The laptop sat there like some breathing, living thing, humming low as if it was waiting for me to look again. My skin crawled with the sense that I wasn't alone anymore. Not in the room, not even in my own head. The words on screen pulsed. I found you. It wasn't just a phrase. It felt like a declaration. My first instinct was to shut the whole thing down, close the laptop, rip the cord from the wall. But when I lunged for it, the screen flickered to a mirror image of my room. My exact room. The same desk, the same coffee cup, the same crooked stack of books on the shelf. Except, I wasn't in it. The camera view was locked on the chair where I was supposed to be sitting. Empty. Waiting. I froze, blood rushing in my ears. It was showing me my own space, but with one terrifying absence, me. I whispered, "What the hell is this?" My voice cracked, and the laptop mic seemed to pick it up. Because a second later, the on-screen room whispered it back, in a distorted, mocking tone. What the hell is this? The realization hit me like a blow to the chest. This wasn't a recording. This thing was watching me. The screen flickered again. My name appeared in bold white text, stretching across the blackness. Then, below it, a date. Tomorrow's date. The hum deepened into something that sounded like breathing, slow, steady, inhuman. My chest rose and fell in sync with it against my will, like it had tethered itself to my body. Panic clawed through me. I slammed the laptop shut. Darkness. Silence. I collapsed into the chair, trying to catch my breath, but the silence didn't last. From the closed laptop, faint scratching noises began, like nails dragging across metal. My stomach churned. I pressed my hands against the lid, feeling it vibrate under my palms. It wanted out. I shoved the laptop into my bag, zipped it up, and shoved it into the closet like I could bury the horror inside. But that night, as I lay in bed, the sound followed me. The scratching grew louder, morphing into whispers, my name, over and over, hissing in the dark. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mickey's grin burned into the back of my eyelids. At some point, exhaustion won. I drifted into uneasy sleep. That's when the dream started. I was in the hallway from the video. The same endless corridor lined with doors. My bare feet slapped against the wood as I ran, heart hammering. Each door I passed swung open for a split second, revealing faces, my parents, my friends, even teachers I hadn't thought about in years. All grinning, all mouthing the same words, smile with him. I skidded to a stop when I saw the last door at the very end. My name was carved into it, fresh and dripping. The handle turned on its own. I couldn't stop myself. I stepped inside. The room was identical to mine. Same bed, same desk, same crooked books. And sitting at the desk, hunched over the laptop, was me. My doppelganger turned, eyes hollow, grin splitting wide, and whispered, "He's already here." I woke with a scream, drenched in sweat. The scratching had stopped, but my closet door was open, and the bag I'd shoved the laptop into? Empty. The days that followed blurred into a nightmare I couldn't escape. Every screen I touched, my phone, my TV, even the monitors at work, glitched with flashes of that same smile. A split-second frame of Mickey's jagged grin, gone before anyone else noticed. I stopped telling people. When I tried explaining it to a coworker, they just laughed. Creepypasta stuff, right? You're binging too many ghost videos. But at night, when I was alone, the whispers grew louder. They didn't come from the laptop anymore. They came from the walls, the pipes, the shadows. Always the same refrain, dozens of voices layered together. Smile with him. Smile with him. I tried sleeping with the lights on, but the bulbs would flicker and burn out one by one. I tried blasting music, but every song distorted into warped carnival tunes halfway through. By the third night, I stopped sleeping entirely. I caught myself staring into mirrors for hours, waiting for my reflection to move on its own. And sometimes it did. I'd blink, and for a fraction of a second, my reflection's mouth curled upward even when mine stayed still. Food lost its taste. My own voice sounded foreign when I spoke. The world around me felt less real by the hour, like the cartoon was bleeding into everything. And then, the phone call started. Always from an unknown number. Always silent, except for the faint sound of teeth clicking together. On the seventh night, I answered. My voice shook as I whispered, "What do you want?" For a long, suffocating moment, there was nothing but static. Then, layered beneath it, a child's voice giggled. "We want you to smile." The line went dead. I threw the phone across the room, shattering it against the wall. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. I could feel something inside me shifting, like cracks forming in my sanity. That night, I dreamed again. This time, I wasn't in the hallway. I was in Disneyland. Except it wasn't the cheerful, crowded park I remembered. It was deserted. The rides rusting, the air heavy with rot. I wandered past crumbling attractions until I reached the castle. At the gates stood Mickey. His ears sagged like deflated balloons, his grin stretched ear to ear, and his gloves dripped black ichor that sizzled against the ground. He opened his arms wide, as if welcoming me home. "Smile," he whispered, his voice booming through the empty park. "Smile forever." Behind him, shadows moved, hundreds of figures, all with grins carved into their faces, all watching me. When I woke, my jaw ached. I stumbled to the bathroom mirror and screamed. Somehow, in my sleep, I had been grinding my teeth so hard that my gums bled. My lips were torn raw, pulled upward in a grotesque, unconscious smile. I didn't sleep the next night. Couldn't. Every time I shut my eyes, I felt him leaning over me. The room would shift, the shadows crawling across the ceiling like living things, and I'd hear that wet chuckle, the sound of someone trying too hard to mimic joy. By midnight, I gave up pretending I could resist. Some sick gravity kept pulling me back to the closet where the laptop should have been. Except it wasn't there. The closet was empty, dust in the shape of where the bag had been, like it had never existed. But the hum, that low, unnatural frequency, was in the air, vibrating through my bones. My skin prickled as I realized it wasn't coming from the laptop anymore. It was coming from everywhere. I staggered backward, and the lights flickered out. Total blackness swallowed the room. When my eyes adjusted, I wasn't in my apartment anymore. The hallway. The same endless corridor from the tape. My bare feet pressed against warped wood, and doors stretched on either side, hundreds of them. The air was rancid, thick with the stench of mildew and rot. Somewhere down the hall, footsteps echoed. Slow, deliberate. I turned, every muscle screaming to run, but the hallway shifted behind me, doubling back into the same stretch ahead. No matter which way I turned, it was forward. Always forward. The footsteps grew closer. I pressed myself against one of the doors, my trembling hand wrapping around the knob. For a moment, it resisted, then clicked open. Inside was a dimly lit room, small and suffocating. A girl sat on the floor, knees tucked to her chest, rocking back and forth. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, her lips carved into a grotesque smile. Dried blood crusted the corners of her mouth where the skin had split. She turned her head in a series of jerky, unnatural snaps until her gaze locked on me. "Smile with him," she whispered, voice shredded raw. I slammed the door shut, heart pounding, but the echo of her words bled through the wood, chanting over and over until it blended with the hum in my skull. The footsteps stopped. I froze. Slowly, I turned my head. He was there. Mickey. But not the Mickey from childhood cartoons. This thing was stretched, distorted, its proportions wrong in every conceivable way. His ears hung heavy and sagging, his gloves torn and dripping with black sludge. The grin, the same impossible grin, split his face so wide it threatened to tear it apart. His eyes were hollow pits, blacker than the corridor itself. "Found you," he said, voice distorted like a chorus of screams forced through a carnival speaker. I stumbled backward, fumbling for another door. My hand closed around a knob and wrenched it open, desperate to escape. Another room. This one filled wall to wall with people. Dozens of them, sitting cross-legged, faces tilted toward the ceiling. Each one wore the same grotesque smile, lips torn, gums bleeding, eyes rolled white. They didn't move, didn't breathe, just smiled. In the corner of the room, a TV played static. The moment I stepped inside, all their heads snapped toward me at once, jaws cracking audibly as their smiles widened even further. "Join us," they whispered in unison. I screamed and bolted out, slamming the door shut. My pulse hammered so violently I thought my chest would explode. The hallway was shifting now, walls bending inward, ceiling dripping with black sludge. Doors warped and groaned as unseen fists pounded from the other side, begging to be let out, or let in. Behind me, Mickey's footsteps resumed. Louder. Faster. I ran. The corridor stretched endlessly, no matter how fast I moved. My lungs burned, legs screaming, but still the footsteps followed, always just a few beats behind. Then I saw it. At the far end of the hallway, a door stood open, light spilling out like salvation. My last chance. I sprinted, heart clawing its way into my throat. The light grew brighter, blinding, filling my vision. I dove for it, slamming the door shut behind me. Silence. I turned, gasping, and realized where I was. My room. The same bed, same desk, same crooked books. Relief hit me like a wave, and I nearly collapsed to the floor. until I noticed the laptop on the desk. The screen was open, flickering with static, and sitting in the chair in front of it was me. My double turned slowly, grin stretched wide, eyes hollow. He spoke in my voice, but deeper, broken, layered with echoes. He's already here. The lights in the room blew out all at once, plunging everything into darkness. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Something icy cold gripped my shoulders, forcing me down into the chair. The static screen pulsed brighter, images flashing too fast to comprehend. Faces screaming, doors slamming, endless halls twisting into oblivion. I realized too late what the laptop really was. It wasn't a gateway. It was a trap. Hands, white-gloved, dripping tar, slid around mine, forcing my fingers onto the keyboard. The keys pressed themselves, typing words I didn't choose. Smile with him. I tried to fight it, but my lips trembled, tearing at the corners as they curled upward. My jaw locked, the muscles spasming until the pain was unbearable. Tears streamed down my face as my mouth stretched wider, wider, wider. Skin split. Blood ran down my chin. Through the static, Mickey's hollow eyes stared back, closer now. So close his grin filled the entire screen. Forever, he whispered. The laptop slammed shut. Darkness swallowed everything. And the last thing I remember before it all went black was the sound of teeth clicking together, inside my own mouth, grinding until there was nothing left but the smile. When I woke up, the sun was streaming through the blinds. For a moment, I thought I had dreamed it all. The corridor, the girl, the crowd of smiling faces, the thing wearing Mickey's skin. Maybe it was just my brain unraveling from too many sleepless nights and too much curiosity. But the blood on my pillow said otherwise. I touched my lips and felt the raw tears in my skin, the sting of freshly split flesh. When I looked at my reflection in the mirror, the corners of my mouth were ragged and swollen, little rivers of dried crimson trailing down my chin. I couldn't stop shaking. The laptop was gone again. Not hidden, not misplaced. Just gone, like it had melted out of reality. For days after, I tried to convince myself I was okay. I threw away the clothes I wore that night, scrubbed every surface in the apartment until my hands blistered, even considered moving. But no matter what I did, I couldn't escape it. Because at night, when the world quiets down, I hear him. The hum. That low, vibrating frequency that never seems to come from one place, but from everywhere at once. Sometimes it comes from behind the closet door. Sometimes from the vents. Sometimes, worst of all, from just beneath my bed. And when I look in the mirror too long, I swear my reflection smiles a fraction too wide, like it knows something I don't. I haven't told anyone. How could I? How do you explain that a cartoon character from nearly a century ago is haunting you, burrowing into your mind like a parasite? People would laugh, or worse, they'd look it up. That's the part one need to make clear to you. Because I know how this sounds. A creepypasta. Just another internet story, right? Some anonymous voice trying to spook strangers online. But I'm telling you, no, I'm begging you, don't look for it. Don't search for suicidemouse.avi. Don't go digging for forums or tapes or archived videos. Don't even type it into a search bar. Because once you invite him in, once you even open the door a crack, he doesn't leave. It doesn't matter if you close the laptop, delete the file, or smash your hard drive with a hammer. He'll find another way back. He always does. You'll hear the hum. You'll see the smile. And then it's only a matter of time. The worst part isn't the hallucinations. It's not the sleepless nights or the shadows that don't move the way shadows should. It's not even the pain of your skin splitting as your mouth forces itself wider than nature intended. The worst part is how natural it starts to feel. Every day I catch myself smiling without realizing it. In the grocery store, at work, passing strangers on the street. A wide, stiff grin I didn't mean to make. They glance at me uncomfortably, but I can't stop. Sometimes I wonder if that's his real plan. Not to kill us, not to trap us, but to turn us into him. One smile at a time. I used to think I was strong enough to resist. That if I ignored him long enough, he'd fade, like a bad dream. But last night, when I woke up gasping in the dark, my lips already split wide and bleeding, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't fighting him anymore. I was welcoming him. And the laugh, the broken, static-soaked laugh, didn't come from the shadows or the closet this time. It came from me. My own throat. My own lungs. Like he was already inside. If you're still reading this, maybe it's too late for you. Maybe just knowing his name is enough to plant the seed. Maybe by letting me tell you this story, I've cursed you the way someone cursed me. If that's true, I'm sorry. But maybe, just maybe, you'll be smarter than I was. You'll walk away. You'll forget. You'll shut your laptop right now and never come back to this page again. Because if you don't, if you give in to the curiosity, you'll hear it too. That low, vibrating hum crawling through your walls. That sound of static, whispering promises you'll never understand. And sooner or later, when you're lying awake in the dark, you'll feel it. A smile, too wide, too sharp, curling across your face, whether you want it or not. And when it happens, just remember, you can't stop it. You can't undo it. You can only smile. With him. Forever.